You can either choose to enjoy rap music or not. And if you don't want to enjoy rap music, that's fine. No big deal. You can choose to go to operas if you want to or not. No big deal. I mean, you can choose to go to football games or not. But you cannot choose not to be involved in architecture. It's not possible. You will, through your entire life, be embraced in, will be consumed in architecture. So if you don't know something about it, it's not just, well, I chose not to be interested in that, but it actually is a void that's left in the potential of what your interest in your life could be. So I take really seriously this class and this possibility of you leading a richer, better, more productive, more efficient, more inspiring life if you know something about the physical world around you. So I'm going to begin today by giving a definition of architecture. And this is not the Webster's definition of architecture. This is the Larry definition of architecture. But I'm going to define architecture, and this is the way we're going to look at it through the whole semester. Architecture is a physical embodiment of who we are as individuals and who we are collectively as a culture. Architecture is a physical embodiment of who we are as individuals and who we are collectively as a culture. Now, at the very smallest scale, that means that if you're assigned to a dorm room in just your dorm, and let's say that UT has an extremely liberal policy about allowing you to alter that dorm room to be to your liking. Doesn't happen, but let's presume that's the case. And then let's assume that you decide to go into one of those jester dorm rooms and you paint every surface in there black. Black ceilings, black walls. You take that little prison-sized window and you put a blackout shade on that. You get a zebra skin rug and you put it on the floor in there, and then you get this fantastic leopard print bedspread that you put on the bed. And you get one of those disco balls and you hang it in the center of the ceiling, and you put these really cool colored strobe lights that shine up at it, and it makes all these little twinkly lights all over the room all the time. And you live in that room for your freshman year. Now, when I go to visit you, when anyone goes to visit you in your room and you open the door and we look in and we see that room, we're going to have some message about who you are, about what your interests are, what your values are, what your personality is. That architecture becomes a physical embodiment of who you are as an individual. Now, if by contrast you moved into that same room and instead you painted the walls Pepto-Bismol pink and you put some nice little lacy frilly curtains on that little prison window and you had a matching bedspread with the same lacy frilly motif, and on the wall you put a little bulletin board and you have your corsage and your snapshots of your friends at the prom and the note you got from your little sister when you left for school, and then on the bed there's all your stuffed toys from when you were a little kid, all your favorite kind of worn, scruffy stuffed toys. Now, if I open the door and I walk into that room, I'm also going to get an impression of who you are by the room that you're living in. Architecture is a physical embodiment of who we are as individuals. Now, even if you neglect to do much at all, and I walk into that room and it's the bare linoleum floor, and it's the institutional green walls, and there's nothing but a bed with no bedspread on it, I also get a message of who you are as an individual. These are things we read all the time, all the physical environments we go into. Now, at a larger scale, it also works at the scale of a neighborhood or a town or a city. If when you graduate from UT, you decide to move to, let's say, Lockhart, Texas. How many people know where Lockhart is? Okay, it's a little town about 30 miles from here. Has great barbecue. But my cousin lives in Lockhart. And let's say you move into this sweet little neighborhood where she lives. Little bungalow houses, wooden houses with porches on the front, big pecan trees in the yard. You get a little job there and you got enough income so you can get yourself a little house. You do a little garden in the back because there's plenty of room in your yard. You raise your own tomatoes and fruits and vegetables. You kind of got to get into sitting out on the porch, maybe even watching your TV out on the front porch late in the evening, and people walk by and they say, "Hey, how you doing, newcomer? You know, you settling in okay?" And on Sunday morning, you see people walking down to church, and during the week, you see people walking down to the grocery store, kids coming to and from school. Nice, pedestrian-oriented, friendly, neighborly kind of environment. If I come to visit you in Lockhart, Texas, I will get a feeling of who you are and who the culture is that you're a part of by the physical environment of that sweet little neighborhood. If, on the other hand, you graduate from UT and you move to New York, and you decide, actually my son just moved to New York, he just moved to a great place on the 12th floor of a building on Mercer Street. I'm going to suggest you move about 10 blocks away from there in a neighborhood called Chelsea. Old neighborhood, used to be meatpacking district. It's a rough kind of industrial feeling neighborhood. Now people have sort of made lofts out of it. So let's say you move into the 4th floor of one of these industrial buildings, walk up, you know, it's kind of a rugged life. You're carrying your groceries, you're carrying your bicycle. The neighborhood's still a little gritty. There still are meatpacking plants. Sometimes smells a little funky. But now there also are art galleries and artist lofts and all kinds of arts things happening in that district. And so it's a really intense, really vibrant, really urban, really gritty kind of existence. And you don't know anybody in that neighborhood, really, because everybody's anonymous in New York. You know, you certainly don't have a garden. You might have a tiny little sprig of something growing in your apartment, but probably not, because there's not much light in those loft apartments. And instead of listening to the birds when you wake up like you might in Lockhart, you listen to the dumpster in the morning, emptying the trash from the industrial facility next door. Totally different, but intense and interesting way of living. Again, if I visit you in New York City, I get a feeling of what is the culture. We know what that society is about by just walking down the street, by feeling, sensing what that place is about. Architecture at a larger scale is a physical embodiment of who we are as a culture.